There is a place on Earth where the boundary between humans and wild beasts is as fragile as a spider's web swaying in the wind. Amid the sun-scorched savannas and enigmatic deep forests of Africa, David, a seasoned ranger, has devoted a decade to safeguarding this untamed wilderness. But what happens when the shield-bearer becomes the prey in the very world he once mastered? David is no hero stepping out of ancient tales. He wields no magic, wears no resplendent armor, only a heart that beats in harmony with the lions he holds dear. For hours, he has sat beneath the shade of acacia trees, watching them stalk their prey, listening to their roars like nature's quiet murmurs. Yet, will this deep connection be enough to keep him alive when darkness engulfs all? One late afternoon, as the sun burned red like blood spilling across the sky, David embarked on his routine patrol. Unbeknownst to him, a pair of soulless eyes lurked in the tall grass. A colossal python, its sinuous body stretching beyond the reach of three men with arms outstretched, lay in wait. Then a thick fog swept in, heavy as a shroud of death, clouding his sight. At that very moment he crossed into the territory of the lion pride, his so-called friends he thought he understood. But in the cloak of night, would they still know him or see only a stranger deserving to be ripped apart? The instant the python lunged, wrapping him tight like a living rope, David confronted a merciless truth. In nature, there is no friendship, only the living and the dead. The distant roars of the lions rumbled through the air, but not to save him. They came to defend their realm. Could the instincts of the wild creatures he once sheltered spare him from death's scythe, or would he merely become a meal in nature's unforgiving cycle? Step into this tale, where every heartbeat is a roll of the dice between life and death, and every glance might be a final verdict. In the realm of lions and pythons, emotion is a luxury, yet sometimes nature's very cruelty cracks open a fragile window of hope. Are you ready to uncover David's fate? Hit the subscribe button on the Animal Kisa channel so you never miss gripping stories like this. The late afternoon draped itself over the wildlife reserve, the day's dying sunlight filtering weakly through sparse treetops, painting faint streaks across the earth. David, the keen-eyed ranger with a steady stride, set out on his regular patrol. Slung over his shoulder was a weathered backpack, holding a tattered notebook, a gleaming small knife and an old flashlight that had never failed him. His plan was straightforward. Check on the animals, scribble a few notes, and return to the station before darkness swallowed the sprawling savannah. The narrow trail, etched by his footsteps over hundreds of treks, emerged in the waning light. Tall grasses on either side swayed gently in the breeze, whispering secrets he couldn't yet decipher. But then, without warning, a dense fog rolled in, swiftly devouring everything in its path. David froze, his breath mingling with the damp air. He squinted, searching for familiar landmarks, but found only a blinding white veil encircling him. The birds fell silent, replaced by an oppressive quiet, shattered only by a low, distant rumble, the roar of the lion pride he'd tracked. For years, he realized he'd lost his way, straying into their domain. His pulse quickened, not from fear, but from the caution ingrained in a ranger's bones. He paused, straining to hear, trying to trace the roars through the twisting fog. Yet, unbeknownst to him, not far off in the thick, towering grass, a massive python lurked. Its enormous form coiled, blending seamlessly with the landscape, its icy eyes silently shadowing his every move. The air turned stifling, as if nature itself were weaving an invisible snare around him. David felt the unease, a faint instinct. That prickled the hairs on his neck. He slowed his steps, fingers tightening around the small knife in his pocket, eyes darting ceaselessly. Then a soft sound, dry grass rustling, crackled nearby. He whipped his head around, but saw only the impenetrable fog. In that heartbeat it hit him. He was not alone, but who or what watched him? The familiar lions, or an unseen peril he'd never faced? In a flash, the forest stillness was torn apart by a monstrous black shadow. From the dense thicket, the giant python surged forward with horrifying speed, coiling around David from legs to chest before he could register the attack. Its power was a living machine, crushing his body without mercy. Caught utterly off guard, the knife stayed sheathed in his pocket, his throat too constricted to muster even a feeble cry. He thrashed in desperation, but each struggle only tightened the python's grip. a silent decree of doom. David's breaths grew shallow and frantic, each one a painful skirmish. The air seemed to vanish, leaving only the sensation of his ribs, on the verge of splintering. His strength ebbed away with every passing second, limbs leaden as if shackled by tons of stone. A chilling thought sliced through his mind. I'll die here in the wild I've spent my life defending. Fear and helplessness intertwined, dwarfing him before nature's ruthless might. The python pressed on, its cold scales clinging to his flesh as if draining his life drop by drop. Then from the distance, the deep growl of the lion pride pierced the fog shrouding the forest. That sound glimmered like a weak spark in David's hopeless night. A fleeting hope flared. Could the lions smell the threat and charge in? But just as swiftly, a sharper dread stabbed through him. If they came, what then? Helpless, bound by the python, he was no more than easy prey. David knew predators well. They saw no difference between the snake and him. Both were mere meat in their eyes. He might slip the python's coils only to meet the jaws of the nearing lions. His heart hammered, each thud a stark warning that time was running out. His vision dimmed, darkness creeping in, yet the roars grew louder, closer. David shut his eyes, torn between praying for deliverance and bracing for a fate even grimmer. The fog hung thick over the forest, a mystifying veil muffling all sound and motion. David, trapped in the python's unrelenting embrace, teetered on the edge of surrender. His breaths were faint, his heartbeat faltering under the predator's crushing force. But then, through the milky haze, shadowy figures took shape. The lion pride emerged, their steps light yet commanding, their forms sharpening into view. Their fur glinted in the feeble light, golden eyes blazing like tiny fires in the mist. For a fleeting second, David dared to believe in a miracle, that the lions would pull him from this nightmare. But he was wrong. The lead lion, a towering beast with a mane black as midnight, halted mere meters away. Its piercing, frigid gaze didn't linger on David, but fixed on the python, the creature claiming him as a prize. The others, taut with muscle and poised for battle, advanced slowly, encircling both man and snake. A low growl thundered, vibrating the air, not a threat to David, but a challenge hurled at the giant python. In their world, David was no target, no friend, not even worth a glance. He was a speck, meaningless in nature's grand tapestry, Death-Defying. Python, with its towering size and bold trespass into the lion's domain, was the invader they vowed to crush. The primal hunt ignited in every lion. They moved not from mercy or a savior's intent. To them, the python was both a menace to erase and a banquet, a prey vast enough to sate the pride after endless hunts through the forest depths. The lead lion dipped its head, muscles taut, claws grazing the earth as if signaling the fight's dawn. The others snarled, their voices weaving into the fog, a chorus of wildness and peril. David, racked with agony, grasped the bitter reality. He was not the heart of this tale. His destiny hung as a mere chance, tethered to the clash of the two natural titans ready to collide. The python, as if sensing the looming danger, reacted on pure instinct. It tightened its coils around David even more, as though intending to use him as a shield against the imminent assault. The constricting rings crushed his chest, leaving him gasping for air, barely able to breathe. But then, in that taut, breathless moment, the python unexpectedly eased its grip slightly, its focus shifting to the encroaching lions. Its head reared up, tongue flicking out, sizing up the enemy. David, frail and battered, seized the chance to draw a deep, shuddering breath, clinging to this fleeting hope of survival. Yet he knew this sliver of opportunity didn't stem from the lion's mercy. It was born from the python's distraction by a far greater threat. The lions stirred, their circle tightening with predatory precision. The leader sprang forward without warning, its razor-sharp teeth aimed at the python's sleek, glistening body. A deafening roar erupted, mingling with the python's furious hiss as it lashed its tail in retaliation. The clash ignited, fierce, relentless, and unforgiving. David, trapped on the razor's edge between life and death, could only squeeze his eyes shut, praying he wouldn't be the next casualty in this savage chaos. Deep down, he understood a brutal truth. Nature harbored no room for compassion. Only the strongest endured, and he, a mere human, was nothing more than an unwilling spectator in this primal struggle for survival. The forest night shattered under the lion's earth-shaking roars. These ferocious hunters, their eyes glowing, red with intent, charged the massive python still clutching David in its lethal embrace. The lead lion, a towering figure of muscle and gleaming fangs, zeroed in on the python's head, sinking its teeth into a devastating bite. The fangs tore through the reptile's thick scales, eliciting a bone-chilling hiss that reverberated through the air. The rest of the pride, moving like a well-oiled machine, leapt onto the python's body, their razor claws and raw power working in unison to wrench it off David. The lion's roars intertwined with the python's anguished hisses, weaving a wild symphony teetering on the brink of life and death. The fight raged on, brutal and unyielding. Despite its formidable strength, the python faltered under the lion's relentless onslaught. In the midst of the mayhem, it had no choice but to slacken its hold on David, redirecting its energy to fend off this new menace. David, who had teetered on the edge of unconsciousness beneath the crushing pressure, suddenly felt his body break. Free! He crumpled to the ground, air flooding his lungs as he coughed violently, each breath a ragged victory. Pain seared through him, wounds from the python's grip, legs trembling with exhaustion, but he was alive. A miracle carved out of a nightmare. Wasting no time, David clenched his teeth and clawed at the earth, dragging himself away. Every inch was a battle, his body rebelling against his desperate will to survive. His head spun, but instinct propelled him forward. He stole a glance back through the dust and shadows, catching the lion still tearing into the python with feral abandon. They spared him not a flicker of attention, no glance, no wasted motion. In that instant, a chilling realization sank in. His survival wasn't an act of mercy from the lions. He was simply a fortunate bystander caught in the crossfire of nature's ruthless contest. The roars and hisses lingered behind him, but to David they morphed into the heartbeat of life itself. Inch by agonizing inch he crawled on, nursing a fragile hope that he could escape this nightmare and live to recount the tale of the astonishing luck that had spared him. David inched across the cracked, dry ground, his breathing jagged, his body drained from the harrowing ordeal. Sweat and dirt caked his face, but he dared not pause. The lions were still out there somewhere behind him, and every second was a lifeline. After dragging himself a few meters, a small shape emerged in the fading twilight. A lion cub, its golden fur shimmering and round eyes brimming with curiosity, strayed from the pride and ambled toward him. David's heart stopped. He curled into himself, muscles taut, bracing for an inevitable strike. He pictured the cub's sharp teeth piercing his flesh. But then something odd happened. The cub merely sniffed him, its nose twitching around, his hand as if inspecting a novelty, before turning back to rejoin its kin, deeming him no threat. David exhaled, a fleeting wave of relief washing over him. Yet he knew he still balanced on a knife's edge between life and death. Before he could steady his racing mind, a horrifying sound split the air. The giant python, though ravaged by bleeding gashes from the lion's assault, summoned a final surge of strength. In a terrifying flash it lunged, coiling fiercely around one of the larger lions. Its grip was merciless, forcing the lion to roar in agony and panic. The pride, once a united front in their hunt, faltered, their roars dissolving into a chaotic cacophony as their focus splintered. David seized this rare opening. Gritting his teeth, he mustered every ounce of his waning strength and crawled farther, desperate to flee the danger zone. But in his haste, his foot snagged on a brittle root, sending him sprawling. The small knife, his sole defense, slipped from his grasp, tumbling into the dense grass. He groped frantically, but it was gone. A cold dread gripped him. Now he was utterly exposed, defenseless against the lurking perils, as if fate relished. Testing his limits, a fierce gust of wind roared through, whipping up dust and dry leaves into a blinding frenzy. David's vision vanished in the swirling haze. He couldn't see the lions, couldn't hear their steps over the howling wind and rustling foliage. Chaos reigned, stripping him of all sense of direction. Was he crawling towards safety, or unwittingly back into the jaws of danger? He had no idea. His trembling hands clawed at the dirt, each move a roll of the dice with his life. In the blinding turmoil, he could only trust his instincts and cling to the faint hope of surviving this nightmare. The wind screamed in his ears, a relentless reminder that his fight for survival was far from over. Resolution of the conflict, the The prolonged clash between the lions and the giant python finally reached its end. The air thrummed with growls and the snap of breaking branches as the lions, with their overwhelming might, launched a synchronized attack. The python, for all its size and ferocity, couldn't withstand the barrage of piercing bites and ruthless claws. With a final decisive strike from the lead lion, the python writhed one last time before collapsing, vanquished beneath the victor's feet. The lions descended on their prize, the sounds of their feast reverberating through the now still forest. So absorbed were they in their triumph that they paid no heed to David, lying motionless a short distance away. David, battered and breathless, saw his window of escape. Biting back the pain, he silently dragged himself toward a nearby thicket. Each motion felt like it was ripping him apart, but he pressed on. Once concealed by the foliage, he let out a shaky breath, the immediate threat seemingly behind him. Leaning against an ancient tree, David gulped air, his strength trickling back. From afar he watched the lions feast, their majestic yet detached forms a stark testament to nature's code. A thought struck him. They hadn't saved him. They'd acted solely on instinct, to hunt, to defend their domain. His survival was a fluke, a fleeting twist of fate in this unforgiving realm. Nature knew no mercy. It bowed only to the law of the strong over the weak. Yet amidst the harshness, a strange gratitude stirred within David. The lions, however unwittingly, had granted him a shot at life. Gazing at them, his love for the reserve and its wild inhabitants deepened. He made a silent vow. He would keep protecting them, safeguarding this land with every fiber of his being. Today's ordeal was a brutal lesson in nature's unpredictability, but it also steeled his resolve. As the sunset painted the sky in its final hues, David rose unsteadily to his feet. His body ached, but his mind was sharp. He cast one last look at the lions, whispered a quiet thank you and limped away, carrying a renewed determination to face whatever lay ahead. Through the grueling fight for survival, David had slipped from death's grasp. He sat beneath the ancient tree's shade, his breathing still labored but his heart steadier. Looking toward the distant lions, he realized nature bends to no human whim. It is harsh, capricious, and sometimes that very harshness carves an unexpected path to survival. The lions hadn't spared him out of kindness. They'd followed, their primal drive to hunt and protect. But because of that, David lived. This tale stands as a reminder. In the wild, humans are not masters, but mere specks, compelled to respect and bow to nature's unyielding rules. The message of this story is a lesson in humility before the raw power of nature. We can love and protect wildlife with all our hearts, but we must never forget that animals live by instinct, not by human emotions or morals. David's survival was nothing short of a miracle, a stroke of luck that taught him a vital truth. To truly safeguard nature, we have to understand and respect its unforgiving ways. If you're captivated by tales of the wild, stories brimming with profound lessons from nature and animals, then subscribe to the Animal Kisa channel. Don't miss out on what's coming next. We'll keep delivering emotional journeys, fresh discoveries about the animal kingdom, and powerful messages about preserving the natural world. Finally, a heartfelt thank you for taking the time to dive into this story. Your support is the spark that drives us to create and share even more incredible tales. Drop a comment below, let us know what you think, and hit that subscribe button to join us on this adventure as we uncover more wonders of the wild. See you in the next story.